Hey everybody, so in today's video we're going to be talking about a topic that many parents that I've worked with in the past or that I currently work with find to be very challenging, and that is taking a child who may have autism or sensory processing challenges or other diagnoses out into the public for things such as festivals, community outings, or even going to restaurants or the grocery store. Many parents report that taking these children out into the public can be very overwhelming and stressful, and while that may very well be true, if you have the right strategies in place, going out into the public can actually be an enjoyable and enriching experience for both you and your child. So make sure you grab a pen and a paper and take some notes during this video, because I'm going to be sharing some practical tips on things that you can do in order to help your child have a successful community outing. Tip number one is to prepare. I cannot stress that enough. Preparation is key. So my number one tip for you is to start by researching the event or the place or the outing that you are going to be taking your child to. So when doing your research, be sure to take note of things such as the layout of the event, take note of the schedule of the event and what things are going to be taking place while you're at the event, the hours and what time the event opens to what time the event closes, and also be sure to find out if there are any quiet areas or designated areas that you can take your child to if they need a break. A lot of stores and a lot of places right now are actually offering what's known as sensory friendly hours. So that basically is a designated time that is put to the side specifically for children who may have sensory processing challenges, and it allows the parents and those children to shop during those specific time hours where it's going to be less stimulating for that child. So wherever you're going, just be sure to do your research and really get an understanding of what to expect during that specific event or outing for your child. Tip number two is to plan for your child's sensory needs. Public events and public outings especially can be very overstimulating for children that may have autism or children that have sensory processing challenges. So before even going out to a public event, you should be sure that you understand and know your child's sensory needs. So by knowing what your child's sensory needs are, you can help them even more by preparing a sensory toolkit. A sensory toolkit is basically supplies or materials that you can bring along with you and your child to help them in the case of sensory overload, or even to just prevent it altogether. So in your sensory toolkit, you may include things like noise canceling headphones, you may include fidget toys, you may include a stuffed animal, you may include a crunchy snack, anything that's really going to help your child stay calm and regulated when they are out and about with you. You may also want to think about ahead of time where your child can go if they need a break, right? So if the place does not necessarily have a sensory friendly space or a designated area for children to take a break, then you may have to even use your car as that child's safe space. Tip number three is to utilize what's known as a social story. So if your child is one that has good receptive language, meaning they pretty much understand what you're communicating to them, then I would definitely suggest you implement using a social stories before going out to that public event or public outing. And for those of you who may be unaware of what a social story is, it's basically a short story that uses very simple language and pictures, and basically it helps the child to understand what's going to be taking place and what will happen when they're in this new situation or new environment. So for example, if you're going to be taking your child to the grocery store for the first time, you may want to read a social story to them that basically explains what it looks like inside of the grocery store, what they're going to be seeing inside the grocery store, what steps are going to take place inside the grocery store, such as picking out the food, then going to the checkout aisle. All of this is basically done to prepare your child as much as possible and help to reduce any overwhelm or any anxiety that they have about going to the grocery store in the first place. Reading social stories to your child ahead of time may actually help them build confidence when it's time for them to actually get ready to go to the place that they have just read about. Now, to go along with a social story, I would also recommend using a visual schedule if possible when it comes to taking your child out to a public event or a community outing. So a a visual schedule is basically going to be used to help your child understand the order of events in order to help reduce anxiety, because a lot of children don't understand the concept of time like us adults do. So if you tell a child, oh, we're only going to be there an hour, most of the time they have no idea what an hour means. And to them, being out in this new place with these new people can be very overwhelming to them, and not knowing when it's going to end can also add even more anxiety to that. So if you can use a visual schedule that will help them understand what's going to take place from the time they get there until the time they leave, that can be very, very helpful for them. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you are taking your child to the zoo. So you may want to have a visual schedule that you can take along with you that's going to show, okay, the first thing we're gonna do when we get to the zoo is we're gonna go see the monkeys. So you just may have a picture of the monkeys on your schedule. Then you may have a picture of tigers on your schedule. Then you may have a picture of a lunchbox, right? That shows, okay, after we see the monkeys and the tigers, it's time for lunch. Then after the lunch break or the picture of the lunch card on your schedule, then you may show one more picture of, let's say, we're gonna go see the panda bears. And then after that, you may have a picture of the car that says, then we're going home. So basically it gives them a visual reference for what to expect so that they understand what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, and then when is it time to go home. So just remember, predictability and routine are very essential factors that can help reduce that anxiety and that overwhelm, because it helps give that child an understanding of what they can expect. The next tip I have for you is to practice coping strategies ahead of time. So these coping strategies are things that you are going to want to practice with your child before you even take them out to the event or the restaurant or the community outing or wherever you may be taking them to. So you may want to practice things such as deep breathing, counting, using a stress ball, giving a stuffed animal a nice hug, manipulating a fidget, just strategies that are going to help your child reduce that anxiety, reduce feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated. So that way, if you've practiced this ahead of time, when it comes time to them actually being out in that public setting, then you can kind of walk them through and coach them through those strategies that you've already been practicing before. And this may make it a lot easier for them to calm and maintain that regulation if they start to become overwhelmed or anxious. Tip number 6 is to offer praise. Now, no matter how big or how small the win is a win, right? So if your child was successful at their community outing or running an errand with you, reward them. And a reward doesn't always have to be a physical reward like a toy or something like that. It can just be saying, hey, I'm so proud of you. You were able to go to the grocery store today. You were such a good girl. You were such a big girl. You're such a good boy. You did a great job. Or sometimes things may not go as planned and maybe your child does become overwhelmed, right? But maybe they are able to use something in their sensory toolkit. Then you can still offer them praise and say, hey buddy, I know that today was overwhelming for you and you felt very afraid, but I'm so proud of you that you were able to squeeze your stress ball 5 times, or I'm so proud that you were able to take some deep breaths in order to help you feel calm again. So no matter the outcome, praise the child because it can be overstimulating and overwhelming for them. And most of them are truly trying their best, because having sensory processing challenges is very difficult, especially when you're out and about in unfamiliar places or when other people are around or when there's a lot of space. It can be overwhelming. So as long as your child is making that effort, make sure you acknowledge them. Tip number 7 is to have a plan B. Now, no matter how much you have implemented all these strategies that I just told you, you prepared, you researched the place ahead of time, you took along a sensory toolkit, you practiced using a visual schedule and a social story, you practiced coping strategies, you offered them praise. Sometimes things may just not go as planned. Things may not go expected, and sometimes things are just out of our control, and the child, as much as they've prepared and as much as they've practiced, they may just have a meltdown and it may be too much for them. So in that case, you definitely just need to have a plan B. Plan B could look like, you know what? we'll have to try this again another time, but today we just need to leave early and go home. Or you know what, we're just gonna have to go to the car and take a break for about 10-15 minutes. Or we're gonna have to just go find something a little bit more on the quiet side to do. Maybe instead of going to the carnival today, we're just gonna have to go to the library, right? So just always have a plan B in mind in case things don't work out as planned, or in case the child just becomes way too overstimulated and it leads to a major meltdown that they're really not able to bounce back from in that moment. So if your child has autism or sensory processing challenges or other conditions that is preventing them from having a successful, fun outing, then just remember that it takes time. Sometimes you're just gonna have to practice these things little by little. You may have to break things down into smaller increments, and instead of saying, hey, we're gonna go to this event for an hour, you may have to say, you know what, we're gonna just go to this event for 15 minutes today and just see how that goes, and then work your way up from there. So if you found this information helpful, I just have 3 requests from you. Number 1, please subscribe to this channel so that you can continue to support this channel and I can continue to provide free educational information for parents and educators and therapists and daycare providers who may need this information to help them. Also, number 2, be sure to share this video with a loved one or someone you think may benefit from this information. And my 3rd request is that you click on this sensory playlist so that you can learn more information about sensory processing in children in the early stages of child development.